I want to get started here. Welcome to the April 12th meeting of the governing body. Shoot, one week off, I tell you, of the governing body. I call this meeting to order. If you will give your attention to Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala, and she will introduce the invocation. Stand as you are able, and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, I wanted to just take a few moments of silence, and then I will go ahead and read something as prayer for tonight's meeting. A moment of silence. What I'm going to be reading this evening is a section of David Abrams' writing. He is a writer, an ecologist, and a poet. May a good vision catch me. May a benevolent vision take hold of me and move me. May a deep and full vision come over me and burst open around me. May a luminous vision inform me, enfold me. May I awaken into the story that surrounds. May I awaken into the beautiful story. May the wondrous story find me. Here and now, on this day, may I taste something sacred.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Madam Clerk, if you'll read roll call, please.
Mayor Padilla.
Here.
Council members Hiller.
Here.
Valdivia Acala.
Here.
Ortiz.
Here.
Emerson.
Here.
Kell.
Here.
Nager.
Here.
Dobler.
Here.
Duncan.
Here.
And Lesser. We have 9 present.
Thank you. This evening we have 2 proclamations. The first one will be for National Therapy Animal Day. I think we have some people who can join me up here as I read the proclamation.
An anonymous letter.
How are you? You just joined us up here. Yes, sir. Hey, man, how you doing? Good to see you. Okay, if I may. Whereas there are thousands of Pet Partners therapy animal teams serving in communities across the United States, and whereas Pet Partners has designated April 30th, 2022 as National Therapy Animal Day, and whereas Pet Partners therapy animal teams in the city of Topeka play an essential role in improving human health and well-being through the human-animal bond, and whereas Pet Partners therapy animal teams make millions of visits per year in settings such as hospitals, retirement and long-term care communities, schools, hospice, and whereas Pet Partner therapy animal teams interact with a variety of people in our community, including veterans, seniors, patients, children facing literacy challenges, the incarcerated, and those approaching end of life. And whereas these exceptional therapy animals who partner with their human companions bring comfort and healing to those in need. Now, therefore, I, Michael A. Padilla, Mayor of the City of Topeka, do hereby proclaim April 30, 2022 as National Therapy Animal Day in the city of Topeka, Kansas. I encourage all Topeka citizens to celebrate our therapy animals and their human handlers. Congratulations. Matt, would you like to say something?
My name is Tim McHenry, and I'm Vice President of Prairie Land Visiting Animals Association. With us today is Karen Semeka and Reagan. She is our president, and we are thankful to be here and be able to do the work that we do in a community that so embraces therapy animals and the vital work that they do. Thank you all very much.
Would you like the copy? Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have a certificate of recognition. This is significant here. We have a good group of people here this evening to join us. And if I can have Coach Cox come up here and join me, please. I believe many citizens in Topeka know about the accomplishments of you and your team, but this has been specifically brought to our attention by Councilwoman Ortiz. She was waving the flag and she said, we need to have this recognition. So if you will bear with me and listen as I read this certificate for Seaman High School Boys Varsity Basketball Team. The Seaman High School Boys Varsity Basketball Team finished the 2021-2022 season as a number 8 seeded team with a record of 18-7 and won the 5 state championship in an 11-game win streak to end the year. It's pretty significant. If I can ask the team to stand, we have some individual stats that have been provided that I'd like to read out. Ty Henry, who is a senior, the first team Centennial League, All Shawnee County Top 10 Top Sports News, second team All-State KSHSAA covered, 5A State All-Tournament Team Sports in Kansas, first team 5A All-State Sports in Kansas, first team 5A All-State Kansas Basketball Coaches Association, and All-Star Game Selection Kansas Basketball Coaches Association. Mateo Hyman, who's also a senior, first team Centennial League, All Shawnee County Top 10 Top Sports News, second team 5A All-State Sports in Kansas, honorable mention All-State KSHSAA covered, honorable mention All-State Kansas Basketball Coaches Association. Gavin Wilhelm, senior, newcomer of the year, Centennial League, honorable mention Centennial League, newcomer of the year, Top Sports News, All Shawnee County honorable mention, Top Sports News, honorable mention 5A All-State Sports in Kansas. Drayden Grice, I hope that's correct. Grice, senior, All Shawnee County honorable mention, Top Sports News. Caden Bonner, a junior, second team Centennial League, 5A State All-Tournament Team Sports in Kansas. 5A State Tournament Most Outstanding Player in Sports in Kansas. All Shawnee County Top 10 Top Sports News. Honorable mention All-State KSHSAA covered. Honorable mention 5A All-State Sports in Kansas. And honorable mention All-State Kansas Basketball Coaches Association. Aaron Davis, who is a junior, All Shawnee County second Top Sports News. The Seaman High School Vikings were coached by head coach Craig Fox, Trent Oliva, Paul Muzzy, and Kevin Hoffmans. Head coach Craig Fox received Coach of the Year, All Classes Sports in Kansas, 5A Coach of the Year, Kansas Basketball Coaches Association, and Shawnee County Coach of the Year, Top Sports News. This group of fine young athletes have brought a sense of pride and accomplishments to their school and its athletic programs, as well as to the city of Topeka. In witness whereof, I do hereby affix my official signature and the official seal of the city of Topeka, Kansas on this 12th day of April 2022. Congratulations, Coach. Congratulations to the team.
All those honors that Mr. Padilla just read show how easy of a group this was to coach. They all were very deserving of each and every one of those honors, and the role that they got on at the end of the season was phenomenal. We really had to beat some quality opponents, and this was the first ever state championship for Seaman boys basketball, so a great moment for our team. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here and what you've did for your school and for the city of Topeka. I appreciate it. Ortiz?
Yes.
I was pleased to read that recognition as requested for the Seaman School and the team. Would you like to make comment?
I would, Mr. Mayor. I would have been there tonight, but I was told that wasn't going to be on tonight because I would have liked the boys to come on the podium. You know, I am so proud of our young people and their parents and their coaches that put 110% into it, getting them to practice, keeping on their grades. And I just want them to know that we are proud of them for the accomplishments that they made. You know, I always want to give our youth that positive reassurance because, you know, if they would have done something bad, we would have read about it over and over and over. And so we are just proud of them. I'm looking to get our other Washburn young ladies to come on board, but let's not be afraid to get them up there with you because I wanted to see how tall they were, you know, how short you were with him.
That's the reason I didn't have to come up. Yeah.
And I mean, I know some of it's hair, but, you know, not all of it's hair. So anyway, just real proud of them, and we are just honored on how they just represented Topeka. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 3 on the agenda, presentations. City Manager.
Mayor, governing body, at this point I will be turning it over to Mr. Steve Wade, Finance Director for the City of Topeka, to present the 2021 Financial Service Fourth Quarter Report.
Thank you, City Manager. Mr. Mayor, joined tonight with my Deputy Director of Finance, Rochelle Matthews. You received a report in your packets about 2 weeks ago. Looks somewhat similar to this. Quarter 4 report. There's a lot of pages to it, so I figured I'd just give you the highlights. These are preliminary results. We're undergoing our audit right now. You'll get the actual results June 14. But citywide revenues for 2021, we're up $3.2 million versus 2020. That's citywide. Citywide expenses were flat versus 2020. If you and for general fund specific, on your screen right now, revenues were up $3.7 million. That's largely driven by sales tax. Expenses, we had talked before about being about $3.5 million under budget. That held. The number you're seeing on there of $1.4 million. You had previously approved some expenses in December. We've taken those down, and that's what's lowered the total. Sales tax breakdown, you can see we did very, very well, $5.3 million above budget. We did budget down, not knowing what the effect of ongoing effects of COVID would be, but that obviously carried very well for us. And then our quarter 4 diverse vendor spending, I'd like to point out that the third line down, the diverse vendor spending by purchase order as a percent, you'll see is at 18%. That's up considerably over what we have been doing. So we are making some progress when it comes to diverse vendor spending. And with that, Rochelle and I can take questions.
Thank you. Councilman Dobler.
Yeah, Steve, where is that going to leave our reserves at the end of the year?
So our reserves, we expect to end up at about $25.9 million. That's as compared to a 2020 reserve balance of $22.7 million.
One more, Mayor.
Yes.
What is that as a percentage?
Low 20s. I don't have the specific number.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
Thank you, Mayor. I thought that Neil always carried a pocket calculator with him. Councilman Dobler. Steve, I do want to say that 18%, up to 18% for vendor, diversity is definitely something good to look at. And I hope that you all continue with that conscientiousness that I know that you're putting into it. And as we continue to do the outreach that we need to do as a city to, minority business owners, et cetera, small business owners, that we can get those numbers up even higher. So thank you for the hard work on that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Further questions from the body? Deputy Mayor Duncan.
All right, so I'm looking to see if this has a page number. It doesn't. So I guess inside the bigger book, right, outside the first 4 pages, on the second page, it's citywide funds at a glance. Under expenses, our debt for 2021 budget was almost 43 million. Our 2021 actuals was 94 million, to the tune of a difference of $51 million. What is,
That is refunding on the SRF loans that we paid down earlier this year.
Okay.
Or last year, rather, sorry.
Okay. Then the other thing, I guess, to this body, which I don't think we've resolved in the last 2 budget cycles I've been a part of, and I don't know if this means we need to bring in our bond counsel or whoever else for a presentation and discussion, is I don't believe we have set where we believe our reserves should be at. Whether that's 15%, 20%, 25%, I think it just kind of hovers, and we all then say what money's available, and that number's kind of been a moving target. I believe previously we talked about 15%. It's obviously above that. But I feel like that's just something we should sort of figure out as we head into the budget process, so we know what money we do or don't want to use out of that. So that's just a random comment, but if we could, whoever's involved in that decision-making process, could be here for that.
Do you have a response?
Yeah, Councilman, the bond policy, the reserve policy we have right now is 15%. But we've been trying to shoot for a little over 20.
Right, and I respect that. It's just this body, at least since I've been here, has never had anyone stand up here and say, this is why we're trying to do that, and try to convince us to change that threshold, or we push back and say, nope, this is our threshold. So that's all. And I know there's other people not here tonight who are involved in that discussion, so maybe at some point we could get them here for that talk.
Yes, sir.
Yep, thank you, sir.
Councilman Dobler.
That's okay. That was my question, what the policy was. So that was answered. Thank you.
Further questions from the body? From Mr. Wade? Okay. Thank you, Stephen. We'll move on to agenda item number 4. If the clerk would read, please.
A is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Christina Valdivia-Acala granting Joe Weir an exception to the provisions of City of Topeka Code Section 945-150 concerning noise prohibitions. B is our minutes of the regular meeting of April 5, 2022. There are no applications. D is approval of a Public Works Engineering Contract Amendment with Cook, Flatt, and Strobel Engineers, PA for additional ramp design at 2 connections not previously identified at Southeast 15th Street and Shunga Trail as part of the County Trail Connections to Neighborhoods project in the amount of $13,400.
We've heard the consent agenda. Entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Motion to approve by Councilman Dobler, with second by Councilman Emerson. Would you call the roll, Brenda, please?
Council members Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Hale,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Council members Hiller,
Yes.
and Valdivia-Acala.
Yes.
We have 9 yes, motion carries.
Thank you. If we'll move on to agenda item number 5, action items, if the clerk would read.
A is a resolution introduced by interim city manager William E. Cochran authorizing and directing the issuance, sale, and delivery of taxable general obligation temporary notes, Series 2022A, of the city of Topeka, Kansas, providing for the levy and collection of an annual tax, if necessary, for the purpose of paying the principal of and interest on said notes as they become due, making certain covenants and agreements to provide for the payment and security thereof, and authorizing certain other documents and actions connected therewith.
Mr. City Manager.
I'll turn this over to Mr. Steve Wade, Finance Director.
Thank you, City Manager. We have before you tonight a resolution to issue $1.68 million in 2022A general obligation temporary notes. This follows action on March 8 in relation to the SORT grants. This is an internal bond. We're basically borrowing from ourselves, and we will pay that back off here in about a month.
Questions for Mr. Wade on this item? Councilman Dobler.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question, Steve. What's our bond fund reserve? What's our debt service fund reserve at this point?
We're around $9 million.
Okay, thank you.
No further questions. We do have somebody signed up, Mr. Joseph Ledbetter, to speak on action item 5A.
Thank you, young everybody. I'll make this very quick. I support this for all the NIAs that are involved. Thank you.
Yeah. Didn't even get to turn the green button on.
No carryover.
Did it take that long?
You can't carry it to the next item.
Any further questions? Okay, we've heard the reading. Entertain a motion. Motion to approve. Motion to approve by Councilman Kell.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Emerson. If you call the roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Emerson,
Yes.
Kale,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia, Akala,
Yes.
and Ortiz.
Yep.
We have 9 yes, motion carries.
Okay, move on to action item 5B, if the clerk would read.
B is an ordinance introduced by interim city manager William E. Cochran, amending the district map referred to and made a part of the zoning ordinances by section 1850-050 of the Topeka Municipal Code by providing for certain changes in zoning on properties located within the downtown Topeka from M3 multiple family dwelling district, C4 commercial district, and O&I 1 to office and institutional district to D2 downtown district.
Thank you. City manager?
Mayor, governing body, this is a action item on the zoning issues that have been discussed previously. We do have Mr. Fyander available if anybody has any additional questions.
I can't see from this. Oh, Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mayor.
Right there. Everybody getting safe.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a question for Mr. Fyander or for the, or actually maybe Councilwoman Hiller might know this, but I see some of the lots that are being impacted are, I think they're across currently from Topeka Iron Works. And I guess if I could ask Mr. Fyander, please, a couple questions. Yeah, Mr. Fyander, thanks for your, this ordinance. Just had a question. Will this in any way impact their operations or their ability to continue to do it?
Topeka Iron Works?
Yes.
This does not include Topeka Iron Works. That'll be, if they are included, it would be in the next phase of what we call D3 here in a couple months. So the D2 is from Van Buren to Topeka Boulevard, 2nd to 5th, that kind of that corner of downtown.
If I could follow up and help out with that question, it came up a lot in the course of those conversations about just because it's not your rezoning, if it's right across the street or right behind you.
Yeah.
So you might want to react to whether it would affect them in that way.
No, there wouldn't be an impact to them. They're actually going to be part of the next phase, which would be a mixed-use industrial rezoning. So no.
Yeah, I apologize. I was looking and I just didn't see that. It looked like their footprint, but now I see it's Van Buren Street, so.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, great. That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? In this particular case, I am required to ask for ex parte communications and have the governing body to declare those. So I'm going to read the following statement. Prior to proceeding with the vote, each member of the governing body who has engaged in ex parte communication with any individual, either in favor of or against the matter being considered, must state that that communication occurred and indicate that even in light of having engaged in the communication, they were able to fairly, objectively, and impartially consider the measure based only upon the evidence provided on the record. The record includes the Planning Commission minutes, staff report, and its attachments, the public comments made during the Planning Commission hearing, and similar relevant information related to the matter. So I'm asking now for any ex parte communication by members of the governing body. Are there any that somebody wants to bring to our Councilwoman?
Mayor, I was involved in working with the businesses when this whole process first started to make sure that people were aware and were getting engaged. Other than that, it's gone pretty smoothly. So I did have that involvement early on, but I don't think any of that would affect.
Okay. Further communications? You thinking about it?
No, communications ahead.
Oh, okay. All right. We do have different voting option requirements in this particular item. One is to approve the Planning Commission's recommendation, and 6 votes are required of the governing body. 2, to reject or amend the Planning Commission's recommendation, 7 votes are required of the governing body. Or 3rd, remand back to the Planning Commission, 6 votes are required of the governing body. So having heard that and declaration of ex parte communications, entertain a motion. Councilwoman Hiller.
Move to approve.
Have a motion to approve and a second by Councilwoman Hiller, second by Councilmember Dobler. Heard discussion. Councilmember Emerson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry, Mr. Fiander, if I could, that D2-5, I was looking at it, I thought it's actually West Star Substation, correct?
If you're looking between 3rd and 4th, the west side of Van Buren is the substation. Yeah. If you're east of that, there's a row of houses and there's a parking lot. But if you go north of 3rd, I think that's the block that
yeah, it's over on Jackson. Yeah,
correct. But they do back up in that Van Buren block between 2nd and 3rd Little.
Right. And I guess my question is right now, and I don't know what electrical substation, what's that's considered, because I guess we have them in residential areas.
Right. You can really have that in any zoning district. It's depending on the zoning district, it could be something that comes before you. Like if it's residential, it would probably come before you. In a commercial area, it wouldn't come before you.
Okay. Yeah. So in this case, doing this is going to no way impede their ability to continue operating this substation and upgrade it?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's right. Thank you.
Okay.
Further questions from the body? Councilwoman Ortiz, did you have your hand up, or was that to second it earlier? Okay. Thank you. All right. Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll for the vote.
Council members Kell?
Yes.
Nager?
Yes.
Dobler?
Yes.
Duncan?
Yes.
Mayor Padilla?
Yes.
Council members Hiller?
Yes.
Valdivia Acala?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
And Emerson.
Yes.
We have 9 yes, motion carries.
Thank you. Action item 5C, if the clerk would read.
C is an ordinance introduced by interim city manager William E. Cochran, amending the district map referred to and made a part of the zoning ordinances by section 1850.050 of the Topeka Municipal Code by providing for certain changes to zoning on property located at 2500 Southwest 17th Street from C2 Commercial District to PUD Plan Unit Development, C2 commercial uses plus a pet nursing hotel with an outdoor area for training and medical support of pets.
Okay. And again, before we get into voting, it's the same admonition with regards to ex parte communications. So without reading the entire document, I'm asking if there have been any governing body members who have had any ex parte communications on this matter to declare them at this time. None? Councilwoman Ortiz.
Well, she did tell me she was coming before us, so I just will, Ms. LaFleur, so I just wanted to say that, coming before the council on this.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. Did you say that? Oh, there she is. Okay.
I didn't know if you needed me or not. Here I am.
Okay.
Good evening.
She's here, Councilwoman Ortiz.
There's no public comment.
I was going to say, there's nothing, no one signed up for public comment.
Just if you had questions.
On ex parte, I was saying she had mentioned to me that she was coming before the council.
Miscommunication. Thank you very much. I need to get us all in the same room. It would be nice. Moving on, again, we still have these same voting options. The first one is to approve the Planning Commission's recommendation. The second is to reject or amend the Planning Commission's recommendation. And the third is to remand back to Planning Commission. So now that we've had communications declared, I want to entertain a motion on this particular item.
Who's Hannah?
Is there a motion? Move approval by Councilman Dobler, second by Councilwoman Hiller. Any discussion?
I know, she's gone.
Okay. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
and Kell.
Yes.
We have 9 yes, motion carries.
Okay. Move to action item 5D. If the city clerk would read.
D is an ordinance introduced by interim city manager William E. Cochran, amending the district map referred to and made a part of the zoning ordinances by section 1850-050 of the Topeka Municipal Code by providing for certain changes in zoning on property located at 1911 South Kansas Avenue from M1 two-family dwelling district to C4 commercial district.
City manager, do you have anything? Okay. Again, this is the same admonition and declaration of ex parte communications by any member of the governing body on this particular item. I ask if any of the governing body members have participated in any of those ex parte communications to declare them now, please. Seeing none, we'll move. Did you have your hand up? Okay. Okay. Voting options again are 1, to approve the Planning Commission's recommendation, 2, reject or amend the Planning Commission's recommendation, and 3, remand back to the Planning Commission. Having heard those options, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve, Mr. Mayor.
Motion to approve by Councilman Kell, second by Councilwoman Ortiz. Madam Clerk, if you call the roll, please. Oh, I'm sorry, discussion. Councilman Kell.
Just by looking at this property online, it is right next to, it looks like Elite Towing, which is right next to Auto Motion. And the family that's listed there has done a lot for Topeka to try to build up some of their areas. So I think this, taking an empty lot and putting it back on the tax roll for them to use for their 2 businesses they have growing right now, like 18 years in the Auto Motion and 2 years in Elite Towing. We definitely, I think, should support something like this to help the growth in Topeka.
Thank you. Further discussion on the item? Okay, seeing none. Now, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Hale,
Yes.
and Nager.
Yes.
We have 9 yes, motion carries.
Thank you. Move on to action item 5E, if the clerk would read.
E is an ordinance introduced by Councilmember Christina Valdivia Akala, establishing a business improvement district to be known as the Noto Business Improvement District, and creating a new Chapter 3.70 of the Topeka Municipal Code addressing services, financing, and establishment of a district advisory board in accordance with KSA 12-1782 at SEEK.
Thank you. Councilwoman Valdivia Akala.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Tom Underwood is in the audience. If he would come up, can he come up to the podium, please?
No, Tom.
Hi, Tom. Just wanted to bring you up for any questions that the council may have. I know that you've been working with City Attorney on this for some time. There had been a couple of changes based on the communications that you had been receiving and I'd been receiving from people in the Noto area, and just wanted to see if you could give some quick background and then we can proceed from there. Just very quick background on that process.
Certainly. Well, actually, this is an initiative that was brought about by the area businesses as we've been trying to address some services, general maintenance, beautifications, improvements, recognizing that this is not something that we can all do on our own, but that this is something that some of these initiatives that there needs to be a financial contribution by the area businesses. And so with that, we were asked to pursue a proposal, which we have brought to the governing body, and had formed an official committee to develop a proposal that we presented to you. Again, we've looked at various business improvement districts, including the one downtown, Salina, Wichita, Manhattan, and we put together what we thought was a fair and reasonable approach for this proposal. You know, very limited feedback. This was shared regularly with the Noto businesses. Based upon some feedback, we made some changes, modifications to the to what we had proposed. But since that point, this has been submitted and I think reviewed by the governing body, and then basically there's been no further feedback since that point.
Thank you. Councilman Kell.
Was there any discussion of maybe making it a closed like walkway, like on Kansas Avenue, where the main street is almost where you can do like a fairs and festivals type thing, but you can keep the bikes and skateboards and all that through there, but the side roads are where people can park and the parking lots, rather than just kicking the bikes and all that off onto the streets.
Just a moment. Had you finished your question here?
Because my concern is putting them in the streets is putting risk of people, especially you get a little child that won't be able to be seen when someone comes out.
That's
point of order.
Yeah,
point of order.
That's not part of this.
Well, I was asking if they've even gone into that.
But that's not for this consideration right now, sir.
We're voting on this, though.
On the bid. Councilwoman Valdivia Acala.
That's why I was trying to call a point of order. That's not germane to what we're doing right now.
Yeah. I think
we're talking about the bid.
I'm sorry.
The Councilman Kell apologizes. He was on the wrong item on his sheet. He understands that now, sir. Ma'am.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Underwood? Thank you, Tom.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, having heard the ordinance, the chair will entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Have a motion to approve by Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala. Is there a second by Councilwoman Ortiz? Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Council members Duncan?
Yes.
Mayor Padilla?
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller?
Yes.
Valdivia Acala?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
Emerson?
Yes.
Kell?
Yes.
Nager?
Yes.
And Dobler.
Yes.
We have 9 yes, motion carries.
Thank you. Move on to agenda number 6, non-action items. If the clerk would read.
A is discussion regarding issuance of general obligation bonds amending Charter Ordinance 89.
Mr. City Manager.
Mayor, governing body, at this time, I will again turn it over to Mr. Wade, Finance Director, to address this issue and answer any questions.
Thank you, City Manager. Tonight, we're seeking a change to the charter ordinance that would align the way we handle all CIP items. Currently, fire trucks and public safety equipment undergo a separate notification process. This aligns everything into one, and it does not change your authority, doesn't change your CIP process. It just keeps us from making a mistake on separate notifications.
We have questions for Mr. Wade on this particular item? Just for discussion, correct? No action? All right. Thank you. Move on to, I heard you taking a breath. That's all right. I move on to non-action items 6B, if the clerk would read.
B is discussion concerning bicycles, scooters, roller skates, and skateboards in the Noto Arts and Entertainment District.
Mr. City Manager.
Mayor and governing body, this is additional discussion from last week, reference this topic. This is in Councilwoman Valdivia Acala district, and she wished to make some comments on that, so that's why the discussion was continued.
Okay. Councilwoman Valdivia Acala.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to go ahead and see, I think this is appropriate to go ahead and call Tom Underwood back up, because I do believe there may be a couple of questions. Also, I just wanted to remind people that this has gone through all the review committee processes, all the channels that it was supposed to go through. There was nothing that was rushed through about this as we continued discussion on it. And also, I believe that whatever was printed in the paper, which I happened to glance at, was not, to me, an article that was really dealing with the full scope of the concerns that drew this up as a concern with the Noto businesses and with Tom Underwood as the executive director. So, Tom, are you there again?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so, you know, if anyone has questions on it, I guess this is the time.
Okay. Now,
sorry,
Councilman Kelly.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, I was just, you know, I had some concerns last week, and I'm not sure if you're aware of those, but kind of went home and thought about it. You know, it's one of those things. Instead of pointing out problems, I want to try to point out solutions. I thought about, you know, have you guys looked at maybe making it a walking district on Kansas there, where you have the side parking, people can ride bikes, and then I even thought expanded into like fairs, festivals, sure. You know, doing a little bit more than what area you have, because there's limited sidewalks, as been said. So, you know, some of the businesses can expand out onto the street, and sure. That way, because my first thought when I got home was, what if there's a family's biking down the road, and you have a 4-year-old and someone's not paying attention and backs right out over a 4-year-old riding on their, you know, tricycle down the road. So my only concern with all of this is the safety of our citizens. It's not that I'm just against it. I'm looking at the safety overall.
Well, first of all, let me say that in the 4.5 years I've been here, one of the things that I know has always been a concern about the Noto Arts Entertainment District is the access to parking. And so parking is an issue. And so your suggestion of closing down Kansas Avenue, one of the most fundamental issues or challenges with that is that there is no outlying parking. And so this is not like Lawrence or a Mass Street where you have huge parking lots that are buttressed up against the main street. So that's part of the first issue. I think the second issue is just in terms of overall consent of the businesses. They're very reluctant at any time to close the street just because it's an impediment to their business access. One of the things that I think that was contributed to the decline of the North Topeka Business District was the fact that you had a rerouting of the bridge. Now, I understand why that happened, and I understand the good intentions of that, but one of the implications of that was that you no longer had drive-by traffic. Now, do I think that that in and of itself is an insurmountable issue to the Noto Arts and Entertainment District as it stands today? No, but I do think that that is one aspect that contributed to the decline over the last several decades of that area. So in short, there's really not much support for closing the street of Kansas Avenue, at least this time, not without major infrastructure issues that would go adjacent to that process. I think that the other thing I would mention that, you know, we have worked very, very, very hard the last, at least the time I've been here, of making Noto a beautiful and a safe place. This is a safety measure. This is a safety implication. In fact, it was recommended to us initially by law enforcement that this is something we might want to take a look at just because of the problematics, some of the problems that we have had with bicycles and carts and those kinds of things on the sidewalks. Our sidewalks are pretty narrow. They're a small town, basically. Our sidewalks range from, I think I measured from 5 feet at the narrowest to about 11 feet. And you add a park bench, you add a light pole, you add some other things, there's not much access. And hopefully you know that we have a lot of foot traffic in Noto, and it's increasing. We see it's not just First Fridays, it's not just special events. We have a lot of foot traffic on a daily basis. And so this is really, to your point, this really is a measure to really enhance the public safety and the beauty and to really make this a visitor-friendly place.
Yes.
Now, was the consideration of the rescue mission being right there taken into consideration of how many residents are on bikes and have to, that is their main transportation, and that this could actually hinder some of them by getting fines and things like that?
This truly is not meant to be an anti-bike aspect here, and this is not anti-mission whatsoever. In fact, we have members of the mission are on our board. We had a meeting today with the rescue mission. I'm going to tell you that we had a dialogue with them about doing this, but this does not prevent bikes from being in Noto. It prevents bikes from being ridden on the sidewalk in Noto. So certainly if there's somebody at the mission or elsewhere, any neighborhood, that doesn't preclude them from being in the area. It precludes them from riding their bicycles on narrow sidewalks. That's the true intent of the whole thing.
Okay, you're welcome. Deputy Mayor Duncan.
You and Councilmember Valdivia were not able to be here last week, which is why we wanted to make sure we gave the council member an opportunity, since it's in her district, to bring forward any new information she wanted. I feel like we exhausted this discussion pretty good last week and have carried it over this week. I would move to suspend our rules and move it to an action item at this time, Mayor.
Okay. I have a motion to suspend the rules to move this to an action item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala. If the clerk would read the roll, please. This is to suspend the rules to move to an action item.
Okay, Mayor Padilla?
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller?
Yes.
Valdivia Alcala?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
Emerson?
Yes.
Hale?
Yes.
Nager?
Yes.
Dobler?
Yes.
And Duncan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, motion having been carried, this is now an action item, and we can entertain a motion on this particular item. Councilwoman?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Councilwoman Ortiz. Any further discussion? Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, actually, a question for the city attorney. A constituent called today and asked what I thought was a great question, because in this it says any person who rides a bicycle, operates an electric assisted scooter, and then it goes on and on. And he asked, what about people that he knows that have like a electric, mobility type scooter?
If it's for an ADA issue, that would not be covered under this.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. Further questions, discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. If the clerk would read, please.
Okay. Councilmembers Hiller?
Yes.
Valdivia Alcala?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
Emerson?
Yes.
Kell?
No.
Nager?
Yes.
Dobler?
Yes.
Duncan?
Yes.
And Mayor Padilla?
Yes.
So we have 8 yes, Councilmember Kell voting no, the motion carries.
Thank you. Move on to non-action item. Oh, well, do we have to go back into our rules? Do we have to make a motion, city attorney? Or we just go back?
I'm sorry, I was correcting that. You only have veto authority on that last, so your vote doesn't count.
Okay. Well, she asked me.
But I did not catch your question.
The question is, do we have to come back into our governing body rules?
No, you can just go back right into the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Move on to non-action item 6C, if the clerk would read.
C is discussion regarding a request by the Public Health and Safety Committee to temporarily suspend Rule 8.2 and appoint a 4th governing body member to the Public Health and Safety Committee.
Mr. City Manager. Mayor and governing body, what this request is, the workload is such in this committee that an additional council member is being sought to help lighten that workload. And so this is a discussion to add a council member to help address that workload.
City Manager, have you identified another member already?
Who the additional member would be? If memory serves me right, that would fall upon the deputy mayor to appoint that.
I have told that committee that as I will not coerce any other members, I'm willing as deputy mayor, since I don't have too many committee assignments, to take that on and fill that role unless there's an objection.
Okay. Well, I think we've made an agreement that believes that's an action that needs to happen so that can help with the work, and I appreciate the deputy mayor taking that on. Okay. With that resolved, there's no vote on that. This is a non-action item, correct? Move on to non-action item 6D.
D is discussion on the implementation of a recruitment plan to search for qualified candidates to fill the position of city manager.
Mr. City Manager.
Mayor and governing body, I think this is the conversation that we've been waiting for. Last week, you approved us to move forward with a contract with a local firm to help and aid us in the search of a new city manager. At this point, I will turn it over to our Human Resources Director, Mrs. Jackie Russell, to move this conversation forward. Good evening, Jackie.
Good evening, Mayor and governing body. First and foremost this evening, I want to introduce you to the staffing of Kansas Personnel Services. For clarification, Kansas Personnel Services is comprised of Key Staffing and Premier Personnel. And with us this evening are Paul Bossert and Patty Millard. They are the firm that you all have authorized us to work with. And I sent an email out yesterday to you all with the position description that you all have provided some input on, as well as some bullet points that Paul has prepared. And I think the best thing for me to do is to just allow them to come up and start working with you all.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor and governing body, I thank you for selecting us as the recruitment firm to hire a new city manager for you, and I assure you that we will work diligently to put a process in place that will result in a successful candidate. And I'm going to let Paul stand for your questions.
Thanks.
You're on the hot seat.
Well, I hope everybody saw I did send out some communication regarding some kind of beginning polling questions to get the process started. I have met and talked with a few of you. Anybody else that would like to share some input directly to us, we're welcome to meet with you personally, have a phone call, or send any email feedback that you would like to share. One of the first things that we really need to finalize right away is obviously that position description, and I know a couple people have shared some feedback with me. If you do have some feedback, I would like to talk about it right away, either individually or right now. I know that you guys have had a lot of discussion already about the position description, so we didn't really want to make too many suggestions until we got the feedback of everybody, because I was determining that there was still a lot of conversation going on about that. So I figure we can go through kind of the headlines where the job description, the polling, and then going through all of the processes. If we just want to maybe touch on each one and see if there's any comments right off the bat.
Go ahead and proceed.
Mayor, do we have this documented on our packet? The position, okay.
I do have an extra copy if there's a way to make copies of it.
Oh, if we have it, I can,
okay.
Well, I guess not everyone has it. Sorry.
It wasn't in the council packet.
Okay, here it is. Okay, yeah,
Well, and we can kind of discuss it if you want me to just roll through everything.
I would appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
So first is get back to me on any description or any parts of the description. I know, like I said, you've worked on it a lot, so The second thing was kind of going through who you wanted us to discuss everything with. We have talked with HR and some of the members already. Obviously, I would like to meet with all of you individually to get all of your independent feedback. We were thinking about meeting with all the department heads individually. In the past, we have pulled them, and we wanted to meet with them and get some buy-in to our process, and thought that might help in the future. And then there was discussion about community stakeholders and whether we should do a committee or anything like that. Our recommendation is that through the process discussion and getting the marketing and recruiting going, that maybe we should invite the community stakeholders more towards the rating and evaluation and the final parts of that process. But those three things, meeting with you, the community members, and the department heads, any thoughts on that?
If I could ask City Manager, I like the idea of meeting with the department heads. Can that be accomplished without any real disruption or anything in a timely manner to help the process?
Most definitely, Mayor.
Okay, good. I'd like to see that happen. I think it's important because obviously coming under your current supervision and then continuing beyond, I want to make sure that they feel comfortable that we've given them the opportunity for that input for the person that they'll be working with and for. So I like that process. Councilman Kell.
The only problem I have with like you said, holding off on the community stakeholders aspect is the main thing I've heard from them after the fact is they wish they were ahead of it instead of maybe on the back end, because they feel like sometimes the candidates don't fit what they were looking for. So even if you feel like maybe doing it as part of both sides, but it's like you usually hear that through reading the CJ paper, Facebook, things like that, that they feel like they weren't heard at the most important part, which was kind of finding those candidates to narrow it down to, and then having to just kind of pick from what's the best there, rather than kind of having that input of what to look for overall.
Appreciate it.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councilman Kell. I've been speaking up about that before. I just want to make sure that the staff, that the council members, the best we can in representing our constituents. But if the constituents are feeling like there's something they are looking for, I just want to make sure that gets to you before the job description's finalized, so we are hiring to that. Or if somehow with the input that you get, there's some discrepancy and you need to double check what we really are looking for, that we do that up front, so that then when you've hired to that description down the line, theoretically, everyone would meet those, whatever those experiences and competencies were, not just the duties. So I'm going to do my best to go over that and represent it as well. I just want to make sure you've got it.
Can I just ask for some clarification on input into the position description? So are there certain community stakeholders that you all would be looking for that position description to be shared with? Or are you looking for more of an open forum of general public feedback? Or I guess just how we try to get to the point of narrowing down the position description that satisfies everyone, but everyone feels like the right people have had input into it.
I don't know that I can inventory names, though. I could think back, but we've had people that have been very vocal about wanting to be at the table in the hiring process. And I want to make sure that anybody that's that interested has a chance to give their input up front. So
okay, and I guess that's the clarification that I'm looking for, is being at the table, and part of the hiring process I see is a panel of 5 or so individuals that are community stakeholders versus on the front end having input into the position description. So I want to make sure that we're grabbing what you're desiring us to do, but I see those as two different pieces of the process.
I do too, if I can respond. I just know from being a manager, if you don't have it in your job description in the first place, you're not necessarily going to recruit to it or hire to it. And I just want to make sure that we've heard folks that whatever it was that they think we were missing, they have a chance to speak up about that. Because being on the panel at the end, people have already been screened against whatever we had. And I'm not even certain we don't have it. I just want to make sure that those who, I don't think we need to have 30 people at the table to do we usually do a public process, which goes very well. Just want to make sure they're vetted against what people are looking for.
Deputy Mayor and then City Manager and then Councilman Kell and then Councilman Douglas. Christina. Okay. And Christina.
Technology is a beautiful thing, and I feel like this is a process we should and could be able to utilize it pretty easily. And I mean, I don't know, there's got to be a way for us to set up an email. I mean, most of it is people don't know who to contact. I mean, they know to contact us, and I've been encouraging everybody, email me, call me, and I know a lot of you show up a public comment, over the next month or so as we go through this part of it. But it may be also simple if we could just literally set up a comment portal, whether it's on our website or through however we want to do it, and then give people, we'll listen to you always, but for these 2 weeks or whatever it is, and then at the end of that period, we can compile that, we can all see that, and then sort of pick through that on our own and bring that back to you. I mean, that way then maybe all 120,000 people feel like they at least had an opportunity to give us some actual feedback that they know will be put in front of us. So that would just be one of my suggestions.
City Manager.
Yeah, Mayor, thank you. I think one of the clarification questions that Ms. Russell was asking, do we want citizen input on what the job description is, or do we want citizen input as to what we desire the city manager to be? Yes. So what we can do is we can set up an email account that we can include all the council members and the mayor, that when somebody sends something in, you guys will receive that email as well as staff, and then we can compare notes. And as the deputy mayor said, we can leave that open for 2 weeks. The hopes or anticipation is that we are able to get this job posted around the 1st of May. We'd like to get that rolling. So with that being said, we're middle of April, we can get this done, but what we'll do is we'll set up that email account, and we can post the job description. That's, it's public information, so we can even send that to our media partners and ask them to put it out there or make it available at their links as well, and then include that email address and get input that way.
Thank you. Councilman Kell.
And mine was more to the point of what after the position description and what the citizens were looking for you to kind of gear you more towards certain areas of what's best for the city. And then I like the internet forum idea of trying to find something like that where people have input, because I know it can be a long, exhausting process when you have to set up so many meetings to try to fill everyone's schedule and get the adequate number of people there. So I do, but mine was more to the point of after we set the position description, now citizen input of what we're looking for.
Councilman Dogler and then Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
Okay, I think I have about 3 questions here. Number 1 is, how much are you getting paid for this? Rhetorical question. Number 2, maybe I can ask Councilman Kell. I think there's only 2 things we need here. The description will tell the world what we're looking for, correct? I mean, you have a position description that enumerates everything that we expect the city manager to do. So just maybe to help them out, I'm not quite sure I understood what you were asking after that. In between the position description and bringing people in to interview, and maybe you can, if it'd be all right.
Sure.
Mine is more of just kind of getting to the fact of citizens say they don't have an input prior to getting to the final candidates. That's where they're wanting to, I feel, have a say in what we're looking for in candidates that may not necessarily be in a position description, that are that may not even be in any city position description, but it's kind of like what we're looking for, because it said down there like a master's degree in political science, business administration, and I believe something, there's a third, was one of the requirements, but kind of maybe where our city wants our panel to focus more on, or our company that we've vendored out to kind of gear their sites a little bit more to those specific items that may be in the position description or may not even be in there, but as something that wouldn't be in there, but they can now gear that more towards those things.
Councilman?
Thanks. I think that's probably a discussion you need to have with Mr. Bossert then, once the position description is complete, as we all will at some point. So I asked to speak before Councilman Duncan spoke, and that's exactly where I was headed. I think everybody's probably the same place. We don't need a panel. We need access for people to give us feedback on the position description, 2 weeks.
That will not, cannot, speak out in public to add more numbers to that. So I think that definitely having a later time where they can then have access to the candidates, so this can have a true community feel to it, and I'll provide, I'll give that feedback to the recruitment people. But I do like your idea, city manager. It makes it just tight, concise, and to the point, and then they'll have their 2 weeks or so to have all the feedback come in. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Further discussion, comments, questions? Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, actually, if I could ask a question of Mrs. Russell. Sorry, I waited until you sat down, by the way. And I know we've been looking at this for a couple months, and something that I'm sorry I missed until just now was number 7, like under the duties and responsibilities, is talking about facilitate and sustain positive labor relations. And then it goes on to say lead labor negotiations to ensure agreements are consistent with governing body and city goals and objectives. And I guess, does that mean the city manager in the future will have to lead labor negotiations if we adopt this as?
If it's not changed, the way it's written here, I would say that is an expectation that the city manager is leading those expectations. And I think that this language was modified in the 2020 work through with you all, with prior city managers. So I think that that's, the guidance and direction that you are expecting if they are setting the expectations and making sure, or if you physically want the city manager at the table for each of the 7 labor contract negotiations.
And I think that gets to be the issue, right? It becomes both this huge time sink where he or she can't do anything else for, but also when you have your boss in the room, frankly, the people underneath you, you don't negotiate with the people underneath, right? You negotiate with the boss. So to me, that's not, and I may be the only one who feels that way, but I just feel like I just wonder if that couldn't say facilitate and sustain positive labor relations. Does it need to say the rest? But
that's the kind of conversation we need.
City manager and I also have a comment on that too.
Mayor and governing body, my recommendation would be that be altered. And the main reason I say that, once those contracts are negotiated, the city manager has kind of the final say of yes or nay before it's brought to the governing body. And so my recommendation is that be altered to say his or her designee, but the city manager, in my opinion, should not be at the negotiation table when those things are going on, because he or she is the one that brings that forward to the governing body and yourselves. And so it is a stopgap. And I agree with Councilman Emerson that if the city manager is sitting at the table, why would you talk to anybody else other than the city manager? So that's my personal opinion.
Thank you, city manager. Also, I agree with both Councilman Emerson and city manager, and there have been other conversations I've had off and on with regards to how we will proceed and in these contract negotiations. I do believe that it's time for us to make a bit of a change and put together a professional negotiation team and keep the city manager from being directly involved in those negotiations. And so working toward that end, we have some time to put that together, but I would agree that I wouldn't want to lock them in that they have to be there. To facilitate or oversee is one thing, but to be directly to lead that, I think puts, as Councilman Emerson aptly describes, puts the boss right in the room and makes it difficult to have serious considerations done by the rest of the staff, because the final action person is right there. So I believe that that does need to be changed.
A suggested wording that would be a simple modification that I think could accomplish that is that we just had it read, facilitate and sustain positive labor relations. And then the next sentence say, ensure labor agreements are consistent with governing body and city goals and objectives. So then it's not speaking to the negotiations, but it's a responsibility of the city manager to ensure those things.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councilwoman Hiller.
I would encourage everybody to really read it with that same sort of a look. One of the ones I penciled, and I'll bring the language, but you know, we're working on Change Our Culture of Property Maintenance right now. There are multiple departments involved in that, and they've been hesitant to work together. And so, for instance, in section number 1, where it says manage and supervise all departments to achieve goals within available resources, blah, blah, blah. It says coordinate department activities with other departments, and I penciled facilitate department activities between departments and outside entities. We want our departments to be, Sylvia, Councilwoman Ortiz talks about cross-training a lot and has for years, but that collaboration amongst the departments not being have to go through the city manager to tell people they should talk to each other. Those kinds of things that we've been working on for a long time, hopefully we can catch in this language. Thank you.
Further discussion, comments? I like the idea of setting up that portal. I do think that there should be a specific end date, because it'll continue to go and go and go if you don't do that. And give the governing body access to what is received so that we can kind of add our 2 cents here and there on what the public is putting in. But I do think it's important for us to keep on track and not keep, okay, now somebody new moved into the city, so we got to get their input, you know. Let's find a way where we can move forward on this, because it's important for us.
Yes, sir. I'm very confident that we're going to put together a process that the city of Topeka has never seen before, and one that we'll be very proud of.
Thank you. Councilman Kell.
When that does go live, that portal, can you, I know you said you don't hit the media, but just I already have a list of people that I'm going to fire it off to that I believe are community leaders that would be great assets to pump that message.
Yes, sir. Once we get that set up, I will let the governing body and the mayor know, and then we'll go live within probably an hour of once I make that notification.
One thing I don't know that you can or cannot do, I know that we get on a pretty regular basis a lot of a flood of emails where it's just copy and paste. They just put a name on there, and they flood the emails. Those don't have a lot of impact. Individual comments, specific and detailed, so that you know that it's not just a big group, let's flood the email box with the same message. If there's some way to keep that to a reduced amount, I think it's important. I mean, it just doesn't give a true picture, because it's just repeating somebody else's comments.
Yes, sir. With this type of system, I don't think we would be able to filter those out, the form letters and emails. I would anticipate that they will come. Certain organizations will do a form letter and have people send it. I would anticipate.
Did you have a comment, sir?
I would be glad to have our staff facilitate putting all those in some sort of spreadsheet so we can filter it out and get individual line item responses so that you don't have to go through individual emails and you can just look at one document, if that would be helpful.
Thank you. I do think it's a responsibility of this governing body to create that job description. We all are familiar with the duties and responsibilities of the city manager and their staff, and should have the best feel for what we need for the city of Topeka. But certainly, we want the community to feel that they're being represented by us in our positions. So I don't want it to be misconstrued that I want to limit input. I just think that it's important for us to take on that responsibility and not continue to wait for somebody else to build that job description for us. I think we have a pretty good idea of what we need and what we're looking for. So I encourage everybody to, for your constituency, if you have people who are interested in providing relevant information and input, to do so. And then I guess city manager make sure that it's very public when that portal is open, because there's always somebody who didn't get notified. So in any way possible, social media, news stations, whatever, make sure we cover all bases if we can. Okay? Thank you very much. Do you have anything further to offer for us?
If you guys look at this document and you see anything further that you want to discuss, let us know and we can definitely work through that process.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Move on to non-action item 6E, and under that item, I do believe we have someone signed up for public comment. Did he sneak out on us? Yes. Okay. All right. Well, city manager.
At this point, again, I will call Mr. Steve Wade up, and this is continued discussion on the capital improvement plan for 2023 through 2025.
Thank you, City Manager. We've had no new questions since last week. We have submitted for your consideration a document from the fire department that talks about a potential modification to the fleet replacement program. It is not a modification to the 2023 year. It is consideration for outlying years.
Any questions? Councilman Dobler.
Yeah, I have a specific question on, I think it's page 19. It's the sidewalk repair program. We had quite a bit of discussion about the 50-50 sidewalk program in the infrastructure committee over the last couple of years. I believe, is this the first year or the second year of this specific program? Do you know offhand?
15th.
It is not the first.
Okay. And if I'm reading this correctly, we're putting $100,000 into the fund every year. Right now, there is $200,000 in. Are these dollars being spent? Is there a process in the current year to spend these sidewalk dollars? I know you probably don't have the answer, but.
Mr. Copley's here with Public Works.
Very good.
Thank you, Councilmember Dobler. I've been in Public Works now for 2 months. I'm still asking lots of questions. We plan to, at the upcoming Infrastructure Committee meeting, we plan to do a presentation of the projects that we would like to get your approval for 2022. Just to boil it down, we have not spent all of the money that we have. My recommendation would be to reduce what we're asking for and probably have, say we have $200,000, I would say we put it on pause for a couple of years. Let's see if we can spend down some of that $200,000 that we have. Our ask will be to authorize us to go ahead and get a contract out there on the street to hire a contractor, and then to have people sign up for the program. And we'll do 50,000 as the first tranche and see what we get in terms of people people's interest in doing it.
Okay, I guess I would be more interested in the process right now. So if, somebody complains about a sidewalk in front of somebody else's house, they get a visit from the city inspector, it says you're responsible for that sidewalk. Do they know that at the same time they get that message, or do they get some information on the sidewalk program? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Do we have people right now that are requesting sidewalk repairs?
To my knowledge, we have 2 that have requested to be included in this program, and you're absolutely right. There were many discussions in the previous infrastructure committee meetings about making changes. No changes have been made to the program. When we get a complaint, we send an inspector out. If there's a trip hazard, in other words, greater than 1 inch of separation, then we will send the notice of violation. That notice gives them ostensibly 30 days, but also has the information relative to the 50/50 program and gives them an opportunity to sign up. And we will include in our presentation to you at the infrastructure committee meeting, and I'll have staff that manages this go through and explain the entire process.
So is this, I guess I'm confused now, is this still a 50/50 program?
Yes, sir, that's what these funds in this program are for.
Okay. I think rather than beating this horse at this point, the infrastructure committee would be a good discussion. I think the direction that we talked about was some kind of funding, maybe it's the LMI neighborhoods, maybe it's income based or something for folks that simply can't afford to repair even half the sidewalk. So let's head that direction in the next infrastructure committee. Thanks, Braxton, appreciate it.
Braxton, you want to say, just in case, Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala and Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I would totally agree with Councilman Dobler. I think we need to do another deep dive into this. The initial change that had tried to be executed was, I believe, earlier in last year, I believe, was actually more detrimental than not to LMI communities. And Councilman Dobler is exactly correct in that the reason that there is not more people on the waiting list or asking to engage with the 50/50 program is because they cannot afford it. And I understand that, the city is not to be looked upon to do every single thing for the citizen. However, it is a large leap for people on fixed incomes, especially our elder on fixed incomes. Number one, they can't afford it. Number two, cannot go outside and walk on the sidewalks because of the bad conditions that they are in. So, I think that this definitely needs to have a deep dive, conscientious and intentional, to see what PWI committee, which has been very, very thoughtful in approach, can come up with, and I will make sure and be present at that meeting. Thank you, Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. If I can throw something out here, I think there's some confusion about which sidewalk program. We actually have 3 sidewalk programs and a fourth major source that can be used for sidewalks as well. The 50/50 program on page 19 has pretty much got all its money spent. That program is about 15 years old. It's not for everybody, but they have generally spent down their money. But there's another one called infill sidewalks that does have money left. And that's the one that Braxton, I think, may have been talking about in terms of getting ideas. And I'll have a comment later about all these different bucket funds, but that one's not spent. We also have the pedestrian plan, which is $600,000 a year. That's bond money, which was set up about 5 years ago. It started, and it has some priority, like pretty much 2 priority neighborhoods per year. And then if there's other money available, sidewalk programs can get slipped into that as well. So I think when people are talking about them, we need to look comprehensively. One of the reasons that the neighborhood folks that I worked with, that we put together the DREAMS program and the Public Works consults, was the idea that if a neighborhood, instead of having either sort or nothing, or not rolling up on the pedestrian program as the priority neighborhood, because those were supposed to be routes to school. I mean, every one of them had its little tweaks that people could come together as neighbors and say, you know what, we're an LMI neighborhood. We'd like to see all the sidewalks in this area of our neighborhood done. Could go into Public Works, just this is a for instance, but a good one, and say this is what we'd like to do. Does it fit in any of those programs? If it did, it could be covered by one of the existing programs. If it didn't, we're on deck to have the DREAMS program go every other year, old sort, and a possibility for neighborhoods, even a block at a time, to compete for that money so that they can get done the priority things in the neighborhoods. So it's a little confusing to come into from the outside, but there are a lot of different ways that sidewalks can be funded. Some of the funds have been exhausted and others have not. So,
Councilwoman Hiller, I'm not quite sure what you're talking about. The money from 2017 through 2021 has been spent, but if I'm looking at this correctly, we are refunding the program.
It says that...
Pardon me?
I'm sorry?
I believe we're looking at a program that runs from 2023 to 2032 with $100,000 each year, at least through 2027. Is that correct, City Manager? Or Mr. Wade, I guess?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. So there is money contemplated for the 50/50 sidewalk fund for the next 5 years?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You know, if you've got an elderly person that has a tough time negotiating the city as it is, they're told they need to get their sidewalk fixed, they're not going to come to Public Works. They're not going to get their neighbors together and dance down the street and whatever else.
I hear you.
They're just going to need some money to get their sidewalk fixed. That's what we're talking about. And I intend to make sure we have that fully funded to whatever level is needed. Thank you.
If I may comment as well on the information that Councilwoman Hiller shared, and I'm sure that under your committee, the Infrastructure Committee, that they will look at all of those funding sources, because I think that's important that it's incumbent upon us to make that information available to those citizens who can't meet that 50/50 or any other reason. I don't think that we should expect them to be able to navigate all of those and understand where they will not be able to apply for those funds. I think it's really important for us to say we have these programs, let's put the money to use and not just let it sitting there, because it does answer a question I was going to ask about why haven't we have more people waiting to get sidewalks done, because we hear that on a regular basis. But if it's because they don't know how to navigate to that pot of money that will help them get that done, then it's on us to make sure that that happens. And so I appreciate that you'll be taking that up under your committee works. Thank you. Councilwoman Valdivia Acala.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say I could not agree with Councilman Dobler more. I understand, you know, Councilwoman Hiller is a plethora of information, but we are in the community the district that I serve, looking at mostly LMI folks, elder LMI folks, and let me just say it would be unconscionable for them to try to maneuver in this city the way that they would need to find out about all four of those programs. And let me just go one step further in this, and that many of the people that I talked with at the VA, some were from Topeka, some were, you know, across the country, they were elder men and women trying to figure out a simple statement that we could go through, but because of their advancing age, because of having no one that they could turn to help them, because of cases of dementia, They could not fill out the paperwork, and they were so bound in the bureaucracy and so frustrated. So I think sometimes instead of, thinking that we're doing a handout or something of this nature, or pull yourself up by the bootstraps and figure this out, for yourself, these 4 programs, we just need to have a tiny bit more of intentionality and compassion in this. And I think that that's what we're moving towards with having a deeper conversation about this on PWI. Thank you, Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Braxton. Further discussion or comment? If not, Deputy Mayor and then Councilwoman Hiller.
I'm going to backtrack to a conversation because I've been thinking about it now for several weeks. You can blame Council Members Emerson and Dobler for planting the seeds that have just been growing as I've thought about this. And everyone's favorite topic of the City Hall HVAC. And I felt like we ended up in a circle that night because what we sort of heard and I'm one of those who thinks we need to get it done. So I'll be upfront. I mean, if we're going to have City Hall, we need to have a good City Hall. But I felt like the answers we got were, I need you to approve this in the CIP up to $10 million, at which point then I can come back to you and tell you how much it's really going to cost. And my issue with that is, and I feel like that's sort of where those questions that were asked kind of led us, and I guess I still am confused as to why we can't at this point approve something to allow staff to move forward with bringing in whatever it is, architect, engineer, I don't know, to do the assessment so that we can then be told in a few months what the actual cost of that project is before we extend it out. And I don't know if that takes an action by us to give the go-ahead or to release funds. So I just felt like we started that conversation and you guys got it and then we didn't go anywhere after that.
City Manager.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor, what I have instructed staff to do, we have $2.8 million left in the City Hall renovation fund to dedicate $1 million of that for the study and review of the HVAC system so we can get that accurate cost of what it's, or accurate approximate cost of what it's going to cost to do the HVAC system. As you saw, I sent another email today that we had some issues with the HVAC system. So you are correct, it needs upgraded. The problem is we really don't have a good assessment of what it's going to cost on the TPAC side because that's not been done. But I'm going to take $1 million out of that 2.8 and get that done.
Okay, someone can tell me later now if $1 million is a lot of money. I mean, it's a lot of money in general, but if that's what it costs to
well, what I'm saying, up to $1 million. I hope it doesn't, but we need to get that evaluation of the system done, and it needs to be an accurate and so you guys do have accurate information as to what it's going to cost. The part of the we are asking for money to be in the CIP, and the reason for that is if we wait till the 23 CIP, it gets pushed another year or two back because we have to order the HVAC and all that system and have work done. And so I know it's an uncomfortable feeling that we're asking you to allocate some funds in the CIP, but I think it's a necessary step that we need.
So then my second, which is connected to the same track but different project, is do we have a timeline for our fleet, having to move our fleet garage? I mean, have we looked, do we have a timeline of when we want to look at locations and decisions? And again, similar deal, try to get a cost, down the path of a cost before we, again, just sort of pick a number. And
yes, sir. Part of that will be in the executive session tonight, land acquisition conversation, part of that conversation. But yes, we had a meeting with KDOT on Monday, and we need to be out of the garage no later than July of 24. That had to be totally out of it. And so planning backwards, we need to be getting this process rolling like we're doing. And so, but the drop dead date of being out of there is June, July of 2024.
My last question, do we know what they're going to pay us for that yet?
We have received initial appraisal for the fleet garage of about $1.2 million. And we had an additional meeting with KDOT this afternoon, reference relocation of equipment and all that other stuff. And so there potentially are additional funds that we will be able to receive to go towards that.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Further discussion? Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you. I just want to itemize some things that I saw, just so people know what I'm thinking about it for future consideration. I went through the pages, and I, again, really appreciate the detail that the finance staff put into issues about spending and fund balances this year. But there are 11 different items that I would call a bucket line item, where it's just $2 million a year or whatever, 100,000 a year, whatever it is. Infill sidewalks, which is bond money; complete streets, which is bond money; alleys, which is fix our street money; ADA accessibility modifications for sidewalks, which is fix our streets money; the big infrastructure money, which is, no, I'm sorry, that's infill infrastructure, which is bond money; the 50/50 sidewalks; the firm money for buildings; curb and gutter, which is, the firm money is bond money; the curb and gutter right now is fix our streets money; pavement management is the big streets money, which is fix our streets; traffic signals, and then what's called traffic safety, 11 of them. 2 of them spend out every year, the 50/50 program and one other. The rest of them, doing a real simple addition between them all, had $3.45 million left over unobligated. The staff went through and said there's this much left, but this much is committed and this much is not. $3.45 million still unplanned, left over from those prior years. I think we should consider sunsetting that money and just clearing the decks on that, because obviously I've looked at that kind of thing year after year. They never catch up. And so sunsetting it, clearing the decks, and moving forward is something I want people to consider. Also, going back through that list, many of them which you saw in the text say something like, well, it's not itemized because we don't know what's going to happen yet. That is maintenance. That should not be in the CIP. I know, most of us know that over years, those kinds of things migrated into the CIP. We're going to talk about holding the lid on taxes or changing it later, but it was to do with this public step up that we're not going to raise taxes, so they migrated it into bond money. We have started migrating those maintenance things back out of the CIP, but I want to really encourage us to take advantage of the opportunity that we have with the fund balances and what the mill levy looks like it's going to be, to finally get that fixed. When I did some simple additions, there's between $5 and $10 million that really are maintenance in that set of 11 buckets that ought to go back. And if you add to that the $2.0 million a year in the fire fleet replacement, think about it. We've moved the police fleet over to cash. We've moved some of the operations fleet over to cash, so we're making progress on it. But if we put the fire fleet back in cash where it used to be, and again, they're only supposed to last for 10 years anyway, and we also moved the rest of the transportation operations fleet over. That's another $3 million. That gives us $8 to $13 million right now that's really maintenance or short-term vehicles that we should, in my opinion, get back into the operating budget when we've got the chance, and this year might be it. Keeping in mind again that every time we take, if it's a major expense, like we're building a new building or something like that, then amortizing it over a period of years helps to spread that expense for sure. But if it's something we're doing every single year, whether it's $2 million a year for fire trucks or $100,000 a year for infill sidewalks, it's just costing us 25 to 60% more. because by the time we do that every year, we're just spending more for those routine things. So I just ran the numbers on what we had, and I wanted to share that this evening as something I'd like to see us look at. I'll have some more specific questions, but that was the issue I wanted to raise. Thank you.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilwoman Hiller, I appreciate that. I wasn't able to write as fast as you were going through those, so I will anticipate you will send those to me. But I can address some of those, like the traffic signal repair. Traffic signals are now upwards of $350,000 on an intersection to repair. And so when I think currently there's give or take 100,000 or so, I may be wrong, but I think in that count. But what those dollars carried over is going to allow us to do some flashing crosswalk endeavors here in the city of Topeka. Not enough money to do a intersection traffic control signal replacement, but allow us to do some of those smaller projects when those dollars are carried forward. So what I would ask is that I be given an opportunity to get with Finance and Public Works and review those accounts and maybe get a better answer and a better handle as to where those are at.
It's 892,000 in that one.
Thank you. Further discussions on the CIP? Seeing none, thank you for your comments. That concludes all of our discussion items.
Whoa.
Well, where am I?
Nice try, Mayor.
Where?
Letter F.
Letter F. F.
You pulled me.
Oh, okay. Okay. Deputy Mayor told me to keep it quick. Okay. Move to item 6F. If the clerk would read.
F is discussion concerning consideration of reducing mill levies for budget year 2023 by the city and other taxing subdivisions in light of significant property value increases.
City Manager.
Mayor, governing body, this is a requested to be on the discussion item by Deputy Mayor, and it's to generate conversation reference the mill levy, considering the valuation increase, I assume Shawnee County and other taxing entities. And with that, if you're good, Mayor, I'll turn it over to the Deputy Mayor.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. So what this is not is an actual decrease in the mill levy proposal. We can have that conversation later. What this is a resolution that we include that discussion as part of our budget process. And why I think it's important to sort of codify that in a resolution is it provides staff some direction as we go through this process to be able to provide us that data comparison and include it in some materials and do those calculations as we go through it so that we have an understanding of what different mill levy decreases could mean or could look like. And I feel like if we don't at least take some vocal, yes, we're willing to have that conversation, it won't happen. At the end of last year, you may recall we had $3.5 million left over, and I threw out the radical idea of saving that over the period of several years and decreasing the mill levy by 1 mil, using that to stuff that hole as we move forward. And that was before the average valuation in Shawnee County was around 13.5%. And even if you account inflation and some other factors, I think we have to take a look at the impact that that's having on citizens at some point. We're not in control of those valuations. We're not in control of what other entities do with their mill levy, and so that's frustrating because we shouldn't have to carry all the water all the time. But at some point, as costs go up for people, including us, and I understand that as a city, as we look at other rates that we will discuss throughout this year that may have to be adjusted, I feel like we at least owe it to include this in the conversation as we go through the budget process. My frustration with government in general, and it's not just government, it's nonprofits and businesses, is, you know, there's an old story about a kid who's sitting in the kitchen while his mom is making the ham, and right before she pops it in the oven, she cuts off the ends, she puts it in the roaster and tosses it in. says, Mom, why do you cut off the ends? Well, I don't know. That's just how my mother always did it, and it tastes great, and so that's how we cook it. So the boy goes to Grandma, and he says, Grandma, why did you always cut the ends off the ham? She goes, I don't know. That's how my mother did it, and it tastes great, and that's how we do it. So the boy goes to his great-grandmother, and he says, Great-grandma, I gotta know, why did you cut the ends off those hams? And she said, because my roaster was really small, and it's the only way the ham would fit in it. And I feel like sometimes that's what we do. We're just carrying over these processes and why we do it that way, and it kind of keeps us boxed in. And so I'm not here yet. We'll see how the conversation goes to ask this body to decrease any mill levies. I am just here. This resolution does two things. It asks us to at least incorporate it into our conversation. And second of all, it does have a provision that asks all the other entities that assess mill levies to also a request from us to also factor into their conversations as they go through their budget processes, just to show citizens that we are thinking about it, and who knows, maybe something can come out of it. So that's why I brought this forward, and that's the purpose of my resolution tonight, Mayor.
Deputy Mayor, do you have specific wording for the resolution, or is it something?
Yeah, it's in the packet.
Okay.
Yep, there's a wording, so it's in there. It's fairly simple, less than a page. That's amazing when you can do something in less than a page. And it does those two things. It just asks us to consider it as we walk through the budget process, and then the second piece is to ask the other taxing entities in Shawnee County to also take a look at it as they walk through the process.
Thank you. Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Duncan, I loved your story. I really think you ought to go back to the state legislature and also to the county, because they're the ones that really need to hear it. And I'll even go up with you and I'll repeat that story for you as well, or we can go and say it together. So if anything, I am dubious about this, because I see as a city what we are tasked to do and how hard we're all trying at this level. I do not want to give people false hopes. I also think people really need to get educated on where the onus needs to be put, and that is on the county. And so I really like your story. I just have real hesitancy about this, but I'll back you up. I'll be right there beside you when it's time to go talk to the legislature and the county on this. Thank you, Mayor.
I will point out, I have actually had this conversation with many of my friends at the legislature. And for any of you know, I have gotten plenty of texts from my good friends at the county asking me to please stop grilling them and writing them every time that the mill levy comes up, including an editorial that I wrote that made sure I pointed that out. But I will continue to do that, and I appreciate the offer of assistance with that, Councilwoman.
Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I really appreciate Deputy Mayor bringing this on the agenda. One of the things, kind of the opposite of his story, is that, in my opinion, a lot of organizations, including government, expand to whatever's available, right? And so unless there's some constraint, I feel we could find ways to spend the entire 13.5%, if that's what it ends up being. So I love the idea, and like you said, people can't, we're always asking people to give more and more and more, it seems like. There's a thing in front of that might be up to the voters. I think maybe it got passed or signed by the governor to offer people the opportunity to engage park in the zoo and a sales tax. And I'm great with that, great with having people vote on that. But at the end of the day, we can't keep asking the same relatively few people that pay property taxes in Shawnee County and look at the incredible amount of tax-exempt properties we have as a capital city and as a county that houses the capital. We're asking the same relatively few people to pay an ever-increasing share of this. And something has to give. And I do think we do not need to grow the government faster than inflation. And right now, it's 7.5%, 8%. There's no reason we should be spending more than 7.5% or 8%. The only maybe caveat is with paving prices with oil right now. The market's kind of messed up on that right now, but that's probably not going to last. The Federal Reserve is jacking things up. We're going to have a recession. I'm telling you, we're going to have a recession in a year or two, I'm betting. I hate that because construction is the first thing that slows. but that's absolutely going to happen when you start jacking up interest rates. Things slow down. And at that, people are going to have even less money, but yet they're spending more and more money. You know, if the same thing happened to people's other investments, if your 401k went up 13% and then you paid tax on it every year, I mean, we'd storm the Capitol with pitchforks, right? Well, I guess that did happen last year, but it really would. I mean, this is, you know, just because your house is worth more, doesn't give you more money. It just costs you more money, and especially people that have owned their house for a lot of years, they're tax poor because you're paying perpetual rent, and it goes up every year. So I fully support this, and I am prepared to do this next week. I will say, in deference to the county, you know, this is not, you know, the county commission does not control the appraisals. I was going to ask, though, just as a joke, if we could get the county appraiser to give us the fleet, if we can have them value the fleet garage for KDOT. So, but that was only a joke, and a bad one at that. So that's all.
Councilman Dobler.
Yeah, a lot of thoughts about this. I agree with the sentiment, and certainly when I opened my appraisal and saw how much it had gone up. The reality, though, is what we get is a combination of residential, industrial, and commercial. And a lot of times, those don't go up nearly as much as residential. So I'll be interested to see what the combined increase is and how that relates to inflation. I think I read today that inflation is higher now than even 1982, back when I had hair. So, yeah. So, yeah, I think this leads us to a bigger discussion. I mean, we should be doing this every time we do the operating budget. We should be determining whether we need to cut the mill levy, raise the mill levy, keep the mill levy the same. And we also need to be looking at things like our reserves, which are well in excess of the 15% that's in the policy. We have a bond fund reserve that's grown quite a bit. And the other piece of this, the one thing we have that the county doesn't have is sales tax. We get a 1% sales tax as part of our general fund. And when inflation goes up, our revenue goes up. That's just a simple fact. So I know Mr. Wade mentioned how much more we receive from sales tax this year. So we need to take all those things into account. I think the state did some wise things this year with their excess. Their budget looks really good. They paid down debt. They paid off obligations to capers. They put money away for a rainy day fund, which is same as our reserve. We need to do similar things, and we need to take the excess funding we have, cash we have in the bank right now, we need to pay down debt, because that will keep, I mean, we can lower the mill levy this year, but 3 years from now, when valuations aren't going up, we're going to be faced with the opposite issue. And at that point, if we can lower our dependence on the debt service fund, we'll be money ahead. So again, I appreciate it. I'll support it. It's really just saying we're gonna do what we should be doing every year. And when that time comes, we've got a lot of work to do. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Further comments? Discussion, Deputy Mayor.
I'll just say to Councilman Dobler's point, that sentiment is exactly why I brought this forward. I tell people I've sort of been now through 2.5 budget processes because we redid the budget during COVID. And that was one of my frustrations, is exactly what he illustrated that we should do we don't. And so I feel this is one way to say we've got to put it in a resolution to make sure we're doing what we should do every year, and that's okay. But that, I would just say he sort of expressed that frustration that we don't always do some of that. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. And is it, my clear understanding is that if we vote on this tonight, next week? Okay, I had it on my thing to vote.
Originally, Mayor, it was an action item and it was moved to a discussion.
Okay. Another switcheroo.
You're not crazy.
You know, I've talked
to some degree with the Deputy Mayor, and I really do think that his intent is good. And I think that the fact that you explain it, that we should be doing what we should be doing all along, and this makes us commit to that publicly, I think shows good faith to our constituents that we're trying to do as best we can to be financially responsible. So I appreciate you bringing it to the body, and the support I think that you'll receive from here will be based on that fact more than being concerned or about what we might lose by doing this. I know that that's some of the feedback I've received from other sources, is that, well, if we do that, what will that do for us to continue to provide services to the community? And I know that's always our concern and consideration, but I do think that it's a good starting point. So I appreciate you bringing it to us today. No vote tonight then, correct? All right. Well, I'm sorry that I overlooked that at that last one, but.
Yeah.
I was trying to get even with you. They said they moved it on. Okay. So, public comment, I don't believe, Madam Clerk, that we have anyone signed up?
No. Oh, Mr. Ledbetter left the room, so
Yeah.
no one else.
Okay, then we'll move on to announcements.
On the April 19th meeting, we have 3 proclamations. We have 1 board appointment, 2 presentations. On the consent agenda, we have an ordinance removing properties from the dynamic TIF district. We have a special event resolution. We have 2 resolutions to clean up for banking for the city, for the municipal investment pool, and signatures on accounts. We have another resolution appointing 2022 redistricting commission, and then a noise exception. On the action items, we have the charter ordinance for the general bond issue, policy and finance committee report for the ARPA application process. The ordinance for bikes in Noto was approved. And then we have a resolution of advisability and authorization for sanitary sewer improvement projects. That is located at 660 Northeast Highway 24. And then, of course, the consideration of the 4th member of the Public Health and Safety Committee member. And then we have the resolution for the mill levy. And then non-action items right now we have to continue discussion on the city manager recruitment process.
Okay, thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Just a couple things, Mayor, thank you. As everybody's aware, the equipment is in place, and demolition on 911 North Kansas will commence tomorrow morning, weather permitting. If not, they said Thursday. But demolition on that will begin very shortly. And the only other thing is that you should have got the email and the link as well. But yesterday we initiated a employee satisfaction survey, and that also includes a lot of questions about child care and the needs of staff. So we've already had a very good initial response since it's been sent out. But please, if you're a city employee, take that survey, because it will hopefully help guide us and also guide the new city manager, whoever he or she is.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move with the governing body for announcements. Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Not used to being first. Okay, I just wanted to say, I think that we all received, as a governing body, I'm not sure, about the move to, for the Shawnee County Health Department moving to ask the mayor for a proclamation that states racism is a public health crisis. That's an email that I received, I think, today. And I just wanted to just state real briefly on it that, having done some research on it from the AMA, American Medical Association, which considers racism as a public health threat, CDC, Center for Disease Control Racism is a public health crisis, to where now our own Kansas Department of Health and Environment has stated that racism is a crisis, is a public health crisis. So I just wanted to say in that point that I would definitely support that proclamation, that it sounds like the Shawnee County Health Department will be asking you, Mayor, or may have already asked to bring forward to the governing body so that, hopefully we can declare as a unified body, to support and acknowledge that there is a crisis. So the other thing is, with having been gone to last week's meeting, I did listen to the recording, and I wanted to thank Mikola Saunders for her presentation from the City of Topeka's Sustainability Board. And I do want to request, City Manager, that we set up a meeting, including myself and at least 1 to 2 representatives from the Sustainability Board that has been in existence for some time, that comes up every year and seems to get nowhere. That's not blame, that's just how it ends up working out. And we're at the point where we cannot, if we're going to look past our own futures and look at the futures of our children and our grandchildren, whether we're city employees, elected officials, deacons, whatever, and get serious about sustainability and about where we are in this climate crisis. Specifically in the meeting, I want to make sure that we address dialogue on truly what the opportunities are for creating a full-time staff position, requesting some possible grant writing for a funding, since there seems to be so much ambiguity with the 2010 energy audit. Also, I would like to see if Gretchen Spiker could be a part of this meeting as well, because Gretchen is just so creative and so on board with helping on so many levels with her job and her investment in community, that I think that the board is there and has offered themselves to help build up what the city is doing in the way of sustainability, and to use social media as a platform where we can start engaging the citizens more. I do think that, comments being made about, our sister cities or peer cities, not sister cities, but peer cities are already doing things above what we're doing, and looking for the Sustainability Committee to act in lieu of a fully filled position is not viable, nor does it have a common sense approach to it, because these are board members. We understand that there's some expertise on the board, but they are not city employees. And so I remember hearing a number of years back about the abysmal state of our underground infrastructure. And I can recall, especially while campaigning, hearing people say, well, why wasn't there more planning on this? Why wasn't there more insight into moving ahead and really thinking ahead into the future about how our underground infrastructure would look like, 20, 30, 40 years down the road? And I can remember in dialogues with people, people saying, well, they just must not have thought about it, or it must not have been a concern. Well, when it comes to sustainability and climate change, this isn't something, to me, as a grandmother and a mother, that we can afford to keep pushing it back on, because this is not about us. This is for our kids, and this is for our grandkids. And I think the more that we just try to push off what the sustainability, committee is doing, it's going to make even their desire to try to push forward on initiatives feel like it's going nowhere. And I see that if we can move in a progressive, out-the-box thinking with sustainability and addressing direct issues of how climate change are impacting our community, then we can even see this as an eco-devo type of initiative as well. Because one of the things that Mikola talked about, which we already know is happening, is climate refugees. They're coming in from Central America already. And I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to understand that eventually they're going to be coming in from the coast. So why not be ready? Why not start looking at this now? So city manager, I am asking you to, make that meeting happen. I want to be a part of it. And the other thing I just have to say is my 9th grade grandson made varsity baseball team at Topeka West. Thank you.
Councilwoman Ortiz? Nothing? Councilman Emerson?
Nothing tonight, Mayor, thank you.
Councilman Kell?
Thank you, Mayor. Coming up, starting this Saturday, will be National Parks Week. And on April 16th, it will be free admission to any national park that charges admission. It'll be free admission that day. We have 10 national park or entities in our state that either go through our state or are part of our state. And the one being in Topeka being the Brown v. Board. As a person that loves history, it's great to take a family and go see a park, go see what's still there from, over 100 years ago, 200 years ago, and see how we became what we are. And I've always found it's a great learning tool for our youth and a great family function to have parents, grandparents, children, all do it together and kind of be able to teach from life as they saw it from when they were the child's age. So there are over 423 national park entities in the U.S. and they get over 300 million visitors a year. And so it's one of those things of, I've always enjoyed them, and I think if it's ever a cost issue for you, this is one of these free days a year that they do, is this Saturday. So you should definitely take advantage of that.
Thank you. Councilwoman Nayer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to apologize for my quiet nature this evening. My allergies are making life hellish, so I'm going to go ahead and share my information and then go ahead and call it a night. If you're also experiencing this, I sympathize. Feel better soon. I wanted to bring attention to the fact that it is National Sexual Awareness Month and that the National Sexual Violence Resource Center is highlighting this particular year online harassment. Sexual harassment, abuse, and assault happens in every community and affects people across the board, all genders, races, ages, and sexual violence is termed as any type of unwanted sexual contact, including words and actions of a sexual nature against a person's will and without their consent. And this is particularly prevalent for young women online. 16% of women versus 5% of men have reported that they have been sexually harassed online, whereas a full third of women under 35 said that they have been sexually harassed online. 11% of men under 35 say the same. A lot of it is related to dating websites, but it happens outside of that realm too. So just take a moment to really understand how you're acting online, how other people are acting online, and if you are experiencing any sexual abuse, please do call the National Sexual Assault Hotline at 1-800-656-4673. That's 1-800-656-HOPE, or use the RAINN, RAINN.org website or app. And to find more information about this, go to the National Sexual Violence Resource Center.org for more information. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good night, everybody.
Councilman Dobler. Deputy Mayor Duncan.
Today, April 12th, is Kansas Voter Registration Day, so it's a good time to just remind people. Big statewide races this year. Entire house is up, so if you haven't registered, go get registered sometime in the next week, or at least before Election Day. So, thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Couple quick things. It was a busy weekend for me. We onboarded the 2022 class of Mosaic Partner Pairs on Saturday morning. 72 people as partners and coaches that will spend the next 9 months in doing a deep dive into race and culture issues, difficult conversations to build social capital, one relationship at a time in Topeka. Very exciting group coming on. In each pair, they're different on the outside but have similarities on the inside and have made that commitment to spend that 9 months. Getting to learn more about other cultures and family structures, which causes you to learn more about yourself, to then build that social capital to improve the unity, equity, opportunity, and inclusion and welcome in this community. So lots of fun. Also, I was privileged to do a fair amount of work and as part of the task force for our Ukrainian refugees and bring our first van load to families. A total of 8 people arrived on Sunday around 6. Mayor was there as well, which was nice, and they're getting settled in 2 different households here. There's tremendous public support. The task force has accumulated by people just calling or writing in to the, let me see, I'm going to forget the name of the, maybe Mike remembers it, anyway, people can get hold of anybody that they've seen on the task force or through the Greater Topeka Partnership. We probably have at least 15 offers of housing, as well as people that have offered money or to help other support for the families that are here and any others that might come. Already 2 different, a family and then a group who can help translate. The young children do not speak any English. They'll hopefully be in school by next week. They're wonderful people and they're settling in very well with a tremendous welcome and community support, which has just been, for me, a lot of fun to be part of. Other than that, it is a holiday weekend coming up. Hopefully Easter, family time is something that many can enjoy. Thank you, Mayor.
I would just follow up a bit on the Ukrainian families that came here. It was a privilege to meet them and visit with them and see how moved they were by the reception and the friendliness of Topekans and just pretty much all the comments they made about the country just coming the route that they did, pretty much southwest part of the United States, and then just raving about Kansas. I did warn them that the weather would change probably within the week, so
Got that right.
Don't get too comfortable. Yeah, and it did. But it's really heartwarming to see that our community came together so quickly. I did offer to them my office if there's anything that we can do to help facilitate their time here, and encourage them as well that if there's a point where they felt comfortable. Right now, I think they're just getting acclimated to everything, that they might even want to meet the governing body as a whole to get an idea. Because for them, it's very important to have a governing body that functions, because that's one of the things that's under attack there in their country, is they're actually removing elected officials from their regular positions so that they can replace them with puppet officials. So it's important for them. Thank you for that, Karen, for helping to bring that on. We do have a need today for 3 executive sessions today, and so if I will ask the city attorney to read.
The motion is to recess into executive session for a period not to exceed 15 minutes to discuss the acquisition of real property for a location for a possible fleet building as justified by KSA 75-4319B6. The following staff may be necessary to assist the governing body in its deliberations: interim city manager William Cochran and any other staff meetings necessary.
Okay, we've heard the motion read. I have a motion to move in, and a motion by Councilman Emerson, and a second by Councilman Dobler to move into executive session. If you'll read the roll call.
Council members Valdivia Arcola.
Yes.
Ortiz.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Kale.
Yes.
Baker has left. Dobler.
Yes.
Duncan.
Yes.
Mayor Padilla.
Yes.
And Hiller.
Yes.
We have 8 yes, motion carries.
Okay, motion carries. We'll take a 10-minute recess and go into executive session. Yeah, I know. Okay, we have reconvened the meeting and are now back in open session with no action being taken by the governing body during the executive session. There is a need for a second executive session if the city attorney would state the motion.
The motion would be the motion would be to recess into executive session not to exceed 15 minutes to discuss employer-employee negotiations related to WPC, water, AFT development services, and other unions as may be necessary for the discussion as authorized by KSA 7543-19B3. The following staff may be necessary to assist the governing body in its deliberations: interim city manager William Cochran, and any other staff he deems necessary.
Okay, we've heard the motion. Motion to approve, Councilman Dobler, second by Councilman Kell. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say aye. Okay. Otis? Okay, we will now reconvene into the second. Okay. We have now reconvened the meeting and are back in open session with no action being taken by the governing body during the last executive session. There is no need, after all, for a third executive session. So unless there's any other business that comes before this body, I will call this meeting adjourned. So boom.